not just because they don't work or they are not good enough, but because they weren't connected to a real business need.
Wow, I mean, there's a lot of things you have to deal with every day, I would say. What does that education and planning process look like in practices?
I often start with an AI readiness diagnostic. So I also do it in a very structured way to assess where the organization stand today.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Control Shifter, a podcast by Smart Dev and Vericel AI featuring voices that take control and drive the shift. So today you are excited to join by someone who is in one of the most fast-moving and complex domain out there, AI or enterprise AI. Thrilled to have Sana, an AI product leader with a background in machine learning engineering, who now leads strategic AI initiatives at EY. So, Sana, thank you so much for joining us today at this time also. Such a pleasure to have you here. Would you like to briefly introduce yourself to our audience before we jump into the key message of this podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here and thank you for having me. I'm Zia Hassan. I'm the senior manager at EY in the AI and data practice. I have been working in this domain for almost about 7 to 8 years now. I started as a data scientist, now working as an AI strategist slash product developer, and have been working in multiple industries like healthcare, consumer products, and manufacturing space these days. And I'm really excited to be on this podcast and talk about the work that we do and where the AI is taking us these days.
Okay, as you mentioned, you start your journey in as a data scientist and also in hands-on machine learning. Now you're guiding executive teams through AI adoption. So that's a pretty unique trajectory, right? So what motivated that shift from a technical background to a strategy side?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So my journey, like I said, it really started in the trenches, building models, writing codes, experimenting with algorithms, from making sense out of millions and millions of records of data to predicting future outcomes with historical data in, various industries like healthcare, manufacturing, automobile, consumer products, etc. While I love the technical challenge, what always fascinated me was more of the impact, right? So, not just what we could build, but what we should build and why. The reason why we are building good AI products, right? Because over time, what I've realized, and this is something very important and still relevant, that amazing AI solutions can often sit on shelf, not just because they don't work or they are not good enough, but because they weren't connected to a real business need or a clear vision from the leadership, right? So that realization had been an eye opener for me in very early days. And I realized very early that I didn't want to build just amazing AI products, but I wanted to help organizations adopt that meaningfully. So today at UI, I help executives move from AI curiosity to clarity, from what we can do with AI to here's how it creates value for our business and our people. And I see myself as more of a bridge between, builders and boardrooms, which where pretty much I'm translating complexity into confidence, right? So to me, AI is not just a technological shift anymore. While many may think about it as that, especially in the last few years, it needs to be a mindset shift, and it has been incredibly fulfilling to help leaders step into that future with purpose these days.
Okay, I see. So yeah, there are so many cool AI product out there, but to make it work, so we need to have it align with the whole business goal and vision, and also a lot of things need to be worked on to have all the people to buy in and have that implementation plan, AI implementation plan work out. Wow, I mean, there's a lot of things you have to deal with every day, I would say. Okay, so
Yeah,
I
it's
believe,
been interesting
yeah.
so far. Yeah, never, no
Oh
two
my God.
days are the same these days. So every
Oh
day
my
is very
God.
exciting.
Yeah, and you also said you love challenge, so I believe that's why you're speaking these with all of the ambition and you're passionate, which is really cool. So I believe that you've been working with so many executive level, and we're speaking about the way they approach all the information out there. What is the most common misconception you see at the executive level when it comes to AI implementation? So many
Yeah.
companies are excited about AI, but still unsure of where to start, and still on social media, there are so many noises surrounding them.
Well, I mean, it's a very important question, and I've seen misconception crawling every day in terms of AI, right? One of the biggest misconceptions that I've seen is that executives think that AI is a turnkey solution. You just plug it in, and magic happens. But the truth is that it's not magic, right? It's all algorithms in the back end, right? And it's basically creating capability, right, into your organization. And like any other capability, it needs a very strong foundation, the right data, the right culture, and most importantly, a very clear problem to solve, right? I often say, don't start with the tech, start with the transformation. What decisions are you trying to improve? What frictions are you trying to remove, right? That's where AI. Another myth that I often see is that AI is a one team effort, which is it's truly not. Successful AI adoption more often than not requires collaboration across business, tech, risk, compliance, even legal teams, right? So it's a collective lift and shift, right? It's not just one organization's responsibility or one function's responsibility. Yes, there might be an owner of it, but other functions need to be educated and brought onto the table, especially if you're targeting the overall transformation with AI. Right. But the good news is that when you get it right, the results are just not incremental, they are exponential. I've seen AI unlock faster decisions in areas like healthcare, smart supply chains in retail, an entirely new way of engaging consumers and customers together, but only when it is not about chasing the latest model, but also about creating meaningful momentum around it, right, and also creating value out of it.
I see. Wow. Okay, so maybe leaders who are listening to this take into account these points. We're talking about setting the vision, also clear up the misconception around these noise. So let's talk about the hard part one, which is the execution part. So you mentioned you helping executive move from we want AI to knowing what we should do with AI. So
Mhm.
what does that education and planning process look like in practices?
Yeah. I mean, see, when executives say we want AI, what they really are saying is we know transformation is coming. We just don't know where to begin with, right? And at that point, my first goal is to demystify AI for them and not just like jump straight into the models or neural nets of the world and LLMs of the world, right? So I basically take a step back and I ask them, what are the key decisions that your team makes every day? Where do the delays happen? Where do you wish you had foresights instead of hindsights, right? And you'd be surprised how quickly that opens up the door to think about AI as not just a buzzword, but as a business enabler. So they start thinking about that business problem that they can really solve with AI as opposed to like, hey, what is AI, right? And what can it do for us? Now, to achieve this, I have built a very comprehensive AI maturity model, and I'm bringing that to public use with the OAF's foundation or that. Yeah, that basically, yeah, I mean, it's an amazing frame. It's a very comprehensive, amazing framework, and it has been built with researchers, right? It's not just industry people. It's also built with researchers. So it has a very comprehensive model across AI maturity. And what it looks across is five dimensions, right? Data foundation, technology, talent, use case prioritization, and governance, all keeping an eye off, like have keeping a security lens around it, right? And then you can use this framework and it'll come up in the next I think 2 to 3 months. It'll be released very soon, so people can use this. It's in public domain. It will be in public domain.
Yeah, please
But
let the
I
network
think
know.
absolutely it's gonna be amazing, especially because I mean so many brilliant minds are basically behind this maturity model. So it's going to be really amazing. I'd love to see how it's getting implemented in the industry. To answer your question, essentially, I often start with an AI readiness diagnostic, right? So I also like do it in a very structured way to assess where the organization stand today, and more importantly, what's blocking scalable AI adoption for them, right? And you're surprised that I often find that sometimes the barriers are technical, like fragmented data sources or data pipelines, but other times they are culture. There is a cultural issues as well, right? Like unclear ownership or fear of automation and things like that. With AI, you must have heard about this, like in terms of people losing their job because of AI. This has been all in the news these days. But then once I figured that out, then we can create a very tailored roadmap for the organization. And sometimes that means maybe, picking up low risk, high impact use cases, things that really can show value very quickly and has the potential to build trust across the organization.
So we are talking some kind of the first stage of implementation. So let's go one step deeper in here. From your experience working across industry and I believe across region as well, because you said maybe in Asia is healthcare. So I believe different region, there are also different culture. So there are different way to have the executive level approach the implementation plan as well. So maybe let's talk about maybe something framed a bit, maybe share with the audience what does a typical AI rollout journey look like from the first engagement to roll out in the industry to work at? Because I know it's very varied and it really depends, but are there any, generic, not generic, but some
Yeah.
sort of fundamental framework that every industry has to stick with this as their key to get into the point where AI could yield the ROI?
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. And like you said, every AI journey is different, right? But most of them follow the same backbone of implementation, right? So they will all follow like something like a typical journey, like from exploration to experimentation to validation and then scale, right? So what happens in the exploration phase is the focus is on understanding the why, right? So we align with leadership on the goals, whether that's reducing patient no-shows in healthcare or improving demand for retail or optimizing asset uptime in manufacturing. This is where we define the value hypothesis and identify the data assets that can solve this problem, right? Then comes the proof of concept phase, right? This is where excitement really basically meets reality. You select a targeted use case, build a minimal version of the model, and test it in a very controlled environment. It's less about perfection, but it's more about learning fast and basically understanding what's working, what's missing, and how is business responding to it, right? Then comes the validation phase, which is both for technical and for operational purposes as well. You basically assess your accuracy, fairness, explainability, but then you also test business integration, right? Things like, will this model actually drive behavioral change in my users, right? Can frontline team trust it? Will compliance sign off on this, right? So just really figuring out the validation part of it. And then finally, scaling, which is where the shift comes from really the experimentation to ecosystem, right? So you should start focusing on automation, governance, monitoring, performance measurements at scale, right? You should also introduce change management and training because any AI application is basically successful only when it is adopted, right? And it's the success is really depends upon the adoption. It's not just accuracy, but how quickly people are able to adopt it in their daily lives. But one thing I would like to call out here is that industry context changes this entire journey a lot, right? So in practicality, one might look for retail, it might not look the same for manufacturing or for healthcare. Or you may have to focus on one phase more in, say, retail or manufacturing, and the other phases in the healthcare. For example, in manufacturing, right, the data is rich, right, but often is locked in legacy systems, right? So then you may have ERP systems or warehouse management systems and things like that. Use cases like predictive maintenance, supply chain optimization, they all require deep integration with physical processes and sensor data. So you need a very comprehensive data and integration strategy along with your AI strategy, right? Because you need to have your data connected together, and for that you also need your integration strategy, right? Then, for example, for another sector, say healthcare, the bar is pretty high, right? The data is very sensitive. There are regulations, it's very strict, and the stakes are very high in that industry. Even the simplest AI solution like automating documentation, even that requires a lot of explainability and trust, right? So you need to have a good governance framework around that, good data sensitive, you need to have your data more, I would say, you have to have those checkpoints in your data that the PII data are not going out. You need to have that control in your data more, right? So your data strategy becomes more of a forefront in that sector as opposed to your AI models, right? So again, industry context really, really changes a lot of the the different phases. But at the heart of it, it's mostly like experimentation, explainability, validation, and scale.
Wow, very mind blowing at this
Yeah.
point because we still not have so many media channels saying how significant regarding the difference between industry when they're adopting these technology.
Absolutely. It's not one size fit all solution. It's not going to be like you create a framework and you can just take it and can apply on from one industry to the other. No, it's going to have, because every industry has their own nuances that you have to keep in mind. And not just industry, honestly speaking, even in functions, right? Every function has its own nuances. For example, I talked about healthcare, right, in manufacture versus manufacturing. But even within function, a supply chain function may have a different priorities, different kind of ways of working as opposed to HR, right? HR data is much more sensitive than, say, for example, inventory data, right? So you have to think about that as well within a same organization and different functions, right? So it's important. You have to have a very tailored approach towards AI strategy as you're building your AI products.
Yeah. Oh, love that. So, yeah, I would like to maybe describe this as like orchestrating a small opera with data and people and politics and governance all has to
Yeah.
moving on as one, and you are the leader of that orchestration. So, yeah, that's really cool. And I think now let's dive into one of the biggest reasons that
Mhm.
you also mentioned before. Most of the AI strategy that doesn't work out isn't because the product isn't that good, but it's because it doesn't align with the business
Yeah.
and the whole goal. So, how do you make sure what's being built is actually solve a business problem and also align with the business goal?
Yeah, I mean, like we talked, right? One of the biggest reason in AI project when it stalls or it works, like it quietly fades out is again misalignment. Team might build technically sound models that is used by no one, right? Or they might solve problems that have not been prioritized. And it's not just because people are smart, it's because the why wasn't clear from the start, right? And that's why I always say, like, don't start with the model, start with the meaning for it, right? Start with why you're building it. Every engagement should begin up with a business problem statement or an impact goal, right? So before we write even a single line of code, we should ask ourselves, what outcomes are we trying to influence, and how will we know if we have succeeded? For example, instead of saying, let's use AI to analyze call center transcripts, we reframe this business problem by saying, like, let's reduce customer churn by identifying friction points in our service interactions. And this is going to this kind of clarity is going to shape up every technical discussions or decisions that will follow on. So from selecting your data to model design, and how you even represent that insight is going to change if you make it more business outcome focused, as opposed to, hey, I'm going to be using AI to just do my work faster. And to basically make this even more meaningful throughout the project, one should set up ongoing checkpoints, what I really call them truth checks, right? These aren't just like model reviews, these are like alignment moments. So basically asking these questions again and again throughout the life cycle of the business problem development, like, or model development, that are we still solving the right problem? Has anything shifted in the business? Are stakeholders still engaged? And a big part of keeping that alignment is balancing the business KPIs with model performance metrics, right? So you keep these two things together, and you will basically nail both the hit both the nails essentially, right? For example, a model might have like 92% precision, but if it doesn't solve, or if doesn't move the needle on the business outcome, it is basically a vanity metric. So you should start measuring both. Is the model performing well, and is it delivering value where it matters? And this is where explainability also comes in, right? Because the trust is essentially the currency of adoption, right? Especially in highly regulated, industries, healthcare and finance, because people won't act on a model output unless they understand and believe how it got there. So you have to have that explainability brought into the entire life cycle, and also to the user, that, hey, this is not just magic. We are showing you, we are giving you the entire transparency of it. So you should start investing into that, and investing into transparency, investing into educating the users that maybe whether it's through interpretable model or clear visualizations, or you do live demo sessions with any user, you should make sure that the why behind the prediction is also as easily accessible as the prediction itself, right? So people should really really understand why they're doing something, and that would immediately follow the suit of you know creating amazing AI products, right? What happens usually is that because these two are so disconnected, the technical people who really develop the products and then the business people who really use the product, they are so disconnected sometimes that, you know, you may build an amazing product, but nobody would be using that, right? Or people may just as a flashy demo or a flashy product that nobody integrates into their workflow. But you have to have that why built in so that the technical users also understand that, okay, I want to make this product much more usable and user friendly and also valuable to my users, right? And that's how it all starts to come together.
Yep, I see. I'll start with defining the root cause or the problem that you're facing, identify the problem statement, and also we have to keep checking on it whether we are solving this problem or not. So I think it's clear is that having a solution and defining a problem, those things are different, right? Because even though you have a solution that fit for this problem, maybe there's still another solution that can solve comprehensively, that can, better solve that problem in a more comprehensive way. I mean, to define a problem, I think it's the hard part here. You look in the overall business context, and to define, okay, so this is a problem, that's the problem, but how do you really define the problem? I would say, because previously we also did a few case and we did consult to our client, but when we give out this solution, we did identify this problem for them. But when then we gave out the solution, and then they said, this is not really the problem we are having. The problem we are having is on the other end, or they're just not really satisfied with
Hmm.
this proposal. So I believe that to identify the problem that is, I mean, the problem that is really important for the whole business. There's so many problems happening,
Yeah.
probably, but the problem has to be meaningful, and we have to identify that. But, I just want to ask if you have any kind of framework or your cheat codes that you've been using to approach to know what the problem that's meaningful to solve for a business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it all comes down to, what kind of return on investment is gonna be coming from that problem, right? So like during the workshops that I do for, AI strategy and AI prioritization of the use cases, what I usually do is I go through the entire value chain with the stakeholders, right? And then throughout the value chain, we find the points where AI can be used or their pain points where AI can help them take decisions faster. But then there are some you would throughout this process you would figure out areas or problems which can be solved very quickly, but they may not have good amount of ROI, right? And then you may have some problems that have a very high value to the users, but then it might take more time to get to that problem or to solve that problem. So it's really that sweet spot that you have to figure out, right? Sometimes what happens that if our stakeholders are not very well versed with AI, what I try to do is that I give them quick wins with those smaller problems that can be solved, even though if they do not have a high amount of ROI, right? So that they start having trust in the AI, right? And the fact that AI can help them. But then that basically gives you a longer runway to tackle the problems that are high value but which may also take high amount of time or high solution, right? Or it might need a very complicated problem, it might need a very specialized solution for it, right? So it's kind of that balance between that, hey, what do you want to show, what do you want to do in the next 4 months as opposed to what you want to do in the next 2 years, right? Yes, longer time frame, there's complex problems may take longer time frame, but they also come with the good amount of reward and it's worth it, right? So it's kind of that sweet spot. But then you basically have a discussion with the leadership that, hey, what is the ROI that you're looking for, right? Are you looking for immediate operational efficiency for your employees? Are you looking for revenue growth that is driven by productivity, or are you looking for cost savings, right? And using that you can figure out use cases and you can prioritize those use cases, right? That, okay, if this use case, for example, the transcript automation, the call center transcript automation use case, if that's going to help me save X amount of dollars in the next 2 months, let's do that, right? Let's show quick value. But then if there's a supply chain optimization problem that might take, say, 3 to 4 months, let's do that. But then, that might take a second in the entire prioritization because it will take longer for you to develop that.
Okay, so we did have a lot of question in the line, but throughout the conversation, I believe that Santa also has shared all of that. But there's still one thing about, so we've been talking about like tech and the tools that are going to help us move forward.
Mhm.
But let's bring back to the people who actually going to drive it are the most important skills or prospective futures AI leaders need to be building now. I believe that is apply for the all generation currently, like a young generation and also the older generation, they will need to hear this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I feel like it's such a new space that it's just like even myself, right? I'm also building the plane as I'm flying it, honestly speaking, right? All of us are doing the same thing because in the last few years, things have evolved so much in this space, right? So we are all kind of like recalibrating ourselves, like even for the leaders, even for the developers, they are all recalibrating themselves, right? But I think the future of AI leadership is less about choosing between technical or strategic skills, but it's more about cultivating the range. The most effective AI leaders I work with are the ones who can zoom in and zoom out, and they understand the mechanics of machine learning enough to ask the right questions, but they also think in systems, stories, and outcomes. Right? Those are the ones that are going to be leading in the long run. Essentially, yes, technical literacy matters. Again, you do not have to build the model yourself, but you should understand how prompting works, how bias creeps into the products, how data pipelines affect performance. Because it's not just about knowing the technicality of it; it builds credibility, and more importantly, it helps you lead with clarity. Another critical aspect is the mindset shift, right? That a AI leader needs to have to be able to lead a hybrid team, right? AI work today is inherently very cross functional. You're sitting in the intersection of engineering, design, risk, operations, and multiple other teams, right? So as a leader, like, you have to become a translator, where you're basically helping technical team understand business nuances and also helping business stakeholder trust and use the technology, right? So that's very important. And then the third aspect is that and I also believe that's very inherent to AI products, is that ethics and responsible AI are no longer optional. They are basically going to become the core competencies. So if you are deploying AI without understanding the social, regulatory, and ethical challenges or the landscape of it, you're not leading, you're basically gambling. And that's not acceptable if it happens at a scale. So I really encourage future leaders to actively study areas like bias mitigation, explainability, data privacy, not just as like risks, but also as design principles. Keep that in mind as you are designing these products, essentially. So yeah, I mean, that's my one advice that leaders should follow.
Yep. Everyone, please take into account these three aspects that Sana has mentioned. Like, I think to make it easier, let's frame it into keywords because there's a lot of insight in each aspect that you give out. Maybe about the ability to translate between different departments, different roles, because AI now allows us to work cross-sectional, cross-functionally, right? And also
Mhm.
about the mindship and also about taking into account all the ethical AI requirements and able to explain it with clarity, I would say. Okay, that's great. I will take into account this as well. All right, so I think we've been covered a lot from strategy to system to skill. Let's close this with a few reflection.
Yeah.
For okay, so for leaders getting AI FOMO, what's your advice for making smart, confident moves instead of reactive one? Just one advice.
Yeah,
Just one.
yeah. I mean, Yeah, if you're a leader and you're like, AI FOMO right now, my honest advice
Mhm.
is that, hey, slow down to speed up, right? Don't chase use
Oh,
cases just because your competitors are doing it, right? Instead, ask yourself, what is that one decision, one workflow, or one pain point in my business that if I make that, if made smarter, it would change the game for me, right? That's where AI basically belongs, right? So really slow down to really speed up, right? This space is changing so fast, and it's changing so frequently. New ideas are coming up, new technologies are coming, new products are coming up, new concepts are coming up. We are almost at the agentic AI space right now, right? So you have to like, don't just get into it for the sake of getting into it, right? Take a step back, figure out what is my that one area where my business can really make good use of AI, right? And it can really change the game out of it. You may have 10 different, proof of concepts, or you may build 10 different products, but it's not, if it is not giving you the right ROI, all of that investment is going to be waste essentially, right? So really pick that one or two things, or have like a curiosity quota, right? Commit to exploring new AI capabilities every quarter, but make sure that each experiment has a business hypothesis attached to it. And that way you are learning and also like de-risking at the same time, right? Just always keep in mind that everything that is possible may not be purposeful. So you have to make everything purposeful, right?
yeah. Slow down to speed up, possible but not equal to purposeful. So
Yes.
yeah, I believe that you've been being in this field for a whole long time as well. So you've been also experience all of the emerging tech. So let's just not talk about AI right now. Let's talk about you as well. Your across journey in the technology field. So is there a belief or mindset that helped you stay focused and effective in this fast changing field?
Yeah, I mean, for me, what worked out was that because I started working on this and I've started getting my hands dirty from on a very early on, for me it was very easier in terms of shifting my gear from, being a developer to an AI strategist, because I know what goes behind the scene. So it was difficult for me. But again, if somebody is just getting into it as an AI strategist at the first time and they have not had their hands dirty on the product itself or on the model sims itself, it might be a little bit of challenge. But again, everybody in this space is pretty much learning right now. If anybody's telling you that you're behind the race, they are wrong. You're not. It's just the time. Whenever you can start, that's the right time to start. Be calm in this AI storm, right? And be the one in the room who can ask the tough question. Prioritize progress over perfection, and you'll do good. You'll have a good amount of AI opportunity to get into, and then your company would have a competitive advantage into it. But yeah, I mean, I have enjoyed my journey so far. It's been evolving. It's still evolving. I'm still new to the whole agent AI space. I'm still learning that space itself, but be curious, be always ready to learn. This space is amazing. A lot of good things are going to come up in the next 10 years, and it's going to completely shift the way we work right now. So just be curious, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Just be curious. And I just want to say that you are one of the guests that I talk with, that you share the job that you're working and the thing that you've been doing with like pure passionate. And it's not just passionate, but it's also about you excited how things gonna be evolved in this field as well, how it's gonna enable more cool things happen. So yeah, people, you've been listening to from listening all of these words from a passionate one. So what can be better, right? Hearing all of these insight from a passionate people, a person that always stay curious, a person always want to learn, eager to learn. Just want to say that these spirit that you brought is bringing us a lot of motivation as well. So
No, I'm glad. I'm glad. I truly enjoyed talking to you, Maddie, and then thank you for having me on this podcast. Would love to do another session with you if possible. And I'm always curious, just and I'm always very excited to like have these insights that I have gathered over the years to share with the audience. I mean, anybody in the audience, if you'd like to connect with me, feel free to send a request on LinkedIn, and I would love to have a conversation with. I hope you all learned something, and we'll continue the conversation later on.
I believe that we'll learn a lot. Okay, so let's close this down, and maybe if we ever have on this another session, or I'll get our audience one. Hey, let's bring Santa back. We want to hear more from her.
Yeah, of course, I would
Maybe
love to.
we will bring her back again. So audience, please let us know, please. Okay, so Santa, thank you so much for all of your insight today. Your clarity, your passionate is really refreshing the whole podcast and also refreshing the space, which is the AI space that often covered with buzzwords currently. But we are very appreciate all of these insights.
No, absolutely. Likewise, I loved and I enjoyed the podcast. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, you guys, so this is Control Shifter with Santa, and thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.